Okay, good evening. This is Andrew Cummings here in Brazil, and we are coming at you live with another Missionary Monday Live. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about today. We have one main interesting thing, but just a quick report about what's going on. First of all, we had a good Sunday this last Sunday. Actually, let's go back a day. We had a good day on Saturday. Saturday. I have a Bible study with a group of people from the neighborhood. Only one of them comes to our church, and he's not a member yet. He's working on it, and he has a hard time making Sunday school, which is when our new members class is taught. So I volunteered to go to his house and have the Bible study with him, which I'm doing. And basically going through the new member stuff. But then he invited family and friends, so we've got a good group there, and we had a really great time. And in fact, this week we had two lessons. It was the message it was the lesson on man, the doctrine of man, anthropology, and then it was the message on or the message. I keep saying message. It was the lesson on. Doctrine of man, and then doctrine of sin, and those kind of go together. Doctrine of man, doctrine of sin. You can't have one without the other. So I said, and they're both in our book that I use, which is something that I put together right when we were starting our church. I said, okay, they're small chapters, and so I told them, I said, I think we can get through both of these chapters all right, so fairly quickly. So we'll get through the first chapter, and I said, okay, now. If there's no questions on this part, we talk about man and his sin nature and the image of God and all of these things. And I said, if there's no questions, we'll go on to the next lesson. We've still got plenty of time. And one of the ladies in the group raised her hand and said, Pastor Andrew, what does the Bible teach about homosexuality? I closed the book, said, we're going to talk about this. And we ended up taking out the whole rest of the time on that. So it was really good. It was a really good chance to discuss, and I think somewhat educational for the people there. They seem to really appreciate it. It's obviously something that's on everybody's mind, something that Christians really need to get a handle on as we live in the times that God has put us in to live. So that was Saturday. Saturday afternoon, I take my son to a class, a computer class that he's taking, and then while he's in computer class, I get to practice with a musical. It's a musical project. It's a project that's sponsored by a government organization here, kind of a half government, half private organization. They sponsor this project to basically increase the skill level of people in the area in music, and they formed a band. I don't play in the band yet, but I go to the practices because they separate by instruments. So I go to the saxophone practice. It's been wonderful. Just being able to sit in these practices, it's been wonderful for my saxophone level. I know many of you who have heard me play are saying, well, that's good. It's about time. So anyway, that was Saturday. Sunday was great. We had a really neat thing Sunday. Sunday was, we had a missionary in our church. We don't have this too often. Our association of churches is kind of far from the other regular Baptist churches in the area, so we don't have a lot of missionaries that make it up to our part of Brazil. And when we do, we try to schedule them so they'll be like for a couple of weeks, so they'll be able to visit all of our churches, so the trip will be worth their while. And so this young lady, she's going to work in a state in the other side of Brazil, in the state of Rondônia, the capital city of that state, which is called Porto Velho. We have some good friends who live there. And she is going to be going there. She just graduated from the seminary. Outstanding young lady. Her name is Rafaela. And she came and spoke to our church. And so I gave her as much time, and I gave her the Sunday school class, the adult Sunday school class, and then as much time as she wanted in the evening service to share her ministry. And it was really great to see how the people responded. And in fact, I said, okay, we're going to do the offering this way. If you want your offering to go to the church, it's envelopes. But if you want your offering to go to the missionary, any money that's not in an envelope is going to go to the missionary. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work, but by the end of the day, our church had given a hefty offering to this missionary lady. So I was very pleased about that, and then I preached a follow-up message on the missionary heart, and actually in Luke chapter 3, which is where we are in our exposition of the book of Luke. I was able to dovetail with John the Baptist's heart, and we were able to talk about that a little bit. So it was really neat. So that was yesterday, Sunday. Today we had scheduled, and now that our house is built, one of the things that I'm very anxious to do is to have people over to our house. Just one of the things that was hard for us to do when we lived in a smaller place was the hospitality that's vital to ministry. And so now that we have a house, we can bring people. And so there's a family in our church, 4 kids, and he's not a believer, she is. And so let me adjust this. It's kind of sliding on me. All right. And so we had scheduled for them to come over. But before that, a couple days ago, I was coming home, and to get to my house, you turn off the main highway onto a dirt road. And so I turned off onto this dirt road, and I saw a mother and 2 kids walking along the road, and I didn't recognize them. They weren't people that I see walking along our road all the time, but that doesn't mean anything. And they saw me, and they turned around and kind of scampered off. That's the best word I can come to think of it. Kind of scampered off into the brush, and there's the section of property where they were is a vacant piece of property. It has an owner, but it's a vacant piece. There's nothing built there. It's brush, tall brush. And I slowed down at that point because I had never noticed before that there's a fence around it, and the fence had been cut. It has been cut for some time. I run past that every morning. Never noticed that the fence had been cut. And as I looked closer, I noticed a series of trails, and normally I would think they were animal trails, but I looked closer, and those were not animal trails. They were people trails. They were wider than animal trails, and the people the mother and the 2 kids had disappeared into those trails. Now, to give a little bit of context, we have here in Brazil a huge issue with something that we call invasion. In the United States, you guys know it as squatting and squatters, and in fact, at the front of our road, the people who come from the United States are always shocked to see this. At the main road that runs close to our house, before you turn off into the dirt road, on the other side of that main road, when we moved to San Luis, that was a huge field. And then from one day to the next, it became a squatter settlement. And actually, they started building, and the owner of the field made a feeble attempt to kick them off, and he knocked all their buildings down. And the next week, all those buildings were back up. And squatters' communities bring all kinds of problems. They bring crime, they bring drugs, they bring violence, just all kinds of problems. And so you don't want to. Residents don't want squatters' community, and they also devalue property like nobody's business. So you don't want squatters' communities building up right next to where you live, and our community and the residents in our area definitely don't. And in fact, a couple months ago while we were traveling, some people tried to start squatting right in front of our house, and the community and the owner of the property got together and managed to get them out with no problem. So as I'm watching these people go in, my thought is, oh my, could it be that they're building a squatters community behind that brush? Because Brazilian law is set up to favor the squatters. And if they can stay on a piece of property and show that they've been on that piece of property for a certain amount of time, it is extremely, extremely difficult to get them off. So it would make sense to build a little community back behind the brush where no one can see you, and then you can say, oh, this is ours, and you can go to court, and it's a big, long, drawn-out case. And if you're the owner of the land, at that point, it's better for you just to settle up with them somehow and get what you can and just move on with your life. So I thought, could it be that? And so I told our neighbor and our neighbor's son, and he mentioned that some other people had been saying that they'd seen people scampering off into there as well. So we decided to go check it out. And it was pretty funny. We don't, carrying guns, normal citizens, is illegal here. So we got my son's air rifle, which is legal. And I got my son. So it was myself, my neighbor kid, and my son, and we took off down the trail to see what was going on down there. And I'm going to post this right now, and you can look at it now or you can read it afterwards, and that's fine. If you look at it now, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to post this if I can pull up the video here on my computer. Yes, there we go. And if it will let me post this when it gets finished loading, then I'll be able to post it. So anyway, we're walking down these trails, and as we're going along, that's not what I wanted to do. As we're going along, okay, this is going to be, all right, let's try this one more time. There we go. All right, it is posted. So we're walking along, and we come across these little areas where the jungle has been cleared away, little round areas, and all around this on like 3 sides with a little opening is palm branches have been set up, obviously set up on purpose. This is not an animal or just nature that did this. No, they're cleared out area, bare ground, and then these palm things have been set up around them, and we're thinking, and there's room for a person maybe to stand in there or sit in there. There's nothing else around it. There were no signs of anything. Cigarettes, cigarette butts, clothing, no signs of fires being made. A couple places we saw where some trash had been thrown, but that was different. It was just an area where people had thrown some bottles. And a whole network of trails. And on every trail we went down, sooner or later we'd find one of these little alcoves. And we're scratching our heads. What is this? And so later on, we'll get back to the trail. Later on, I'm talking to a lady from our church. And she grew up out in the interior. In fact, it was the lady who came and they hung out with our family tonight at our house. We had a really great time. She grew up out in the interior of the state of Maranhão. And I described these things to her. She started laughing because they're a huge mystery, both to my neighbor kid, to myself, my son. We couldn't figure it out. She started laughing and laughing. I said, well, what's so funny? She said, Pastor, those are animal traps. These little animals called cuchillas, which are like little rodents. It looks like a mix between a little rodent and a deer because they have long, skinny legs. And a couple other animals also. She said they put those and the animals go in and get confused, disoriented, can't get out. And the people come in and take them and, they have dinner. So... And apparently that vacant lot is just full of those little traps. So that was, that mystery solved. Well, if you're on the page, and I put the link down in there was another mystery that was not solved. And we were walking along, this time we're leaving the area, having not found nobody, and just these areas that we found out later were animal traps. And all of a sudden, like some color thing caught my eye, some color. Not nature color, like synthetic color. And I looked, and there was a whole pile of women's undergarments, of brassieres. That's, I think, the most sanitized word I can use there. A whole pile of brassieres, different colors, different sizes, different. And there's actually a picture on our website, just lying there, just kind of partially covered by some underbrush and so on. That's a mystery. Why? What? It looks a little creepy, and no one could answer that question for me. So we took some pictures of it. My neighbor is a retired police officer, so we handed over the pictures to him, and he'll go through the channels and they'll see what might be going on or might not be going on over there. So that was that already was adventure enough. And as we got to the far end of the field and about ready to turn around, there's a place where there's been a wall built, the next property over. And my son goes, oh, hey, look at that. And I turn around, and here is this huge turtle shell. And in the link I put, if you click through the pictures there, you'll see that's the last picture. There's a huge turtle shell. Sans turtle. And it's been there a while because the turtle shell is all you have is the bone, and the outer covering of the turtle shell is scattered around, you can see. And it appears as if the turtle died of natural causes. It was not killed for hunting or anything. It just kind of died there, but it has been a while. So my son picked that up, and we brought that home, and we've got it here at the house now. And my son's talking about painting it or doing something with it to make it ornamental. So apparently ornamental turtle shells are a thing. So anyway, that was today's adventure, and then of course we had the family over. That was a lot of fun. I gotta tell you that I just enjoy having people over and talking with them. And if you be praying, Francisco, who's the husband, he was there. We had a great time. He's not a believer. He's also out of work, and I've got some work that I'm going to be doing in our house this week. Hopefully, it was just delivered, some pipes that we're going to be hooking up our water tower, our water tank to a well. Instead of being on the neighbor's system, we're going to be directly connected to a well. And since he's out of work, and this kind of work is along his line, I'm going to hire him to come do that. Not a believer. Pray that we get chances to talk to him about the gospel. Ask God to give us wisdom to make chances to talk to him about the gospel. It's not, by the way, for lack of hearing the gospel. He has heard the gospel over and over from myself, from others in our church, from being in our church and sitting in our messages. Outstanding guy. Love him to death. And he needs Christ. So pray for him, Francisco. That's the news from today, from here, and some upcoming things we have in the works. Of course, this is November, and the big event coming up will be our Christmas program and New Year's program in December. Be praying for one of our sister churches who is they're looking for a pastor. And they've been looking for a pastor now for about 4 years. And so it's been a rough hole. And for us to get pastors up here has been kind of rough. So and they were looking at a guy, and this guy has just let it be known to us that he's not coming. And so that puts the church back to square one. We have some names we're going to give them. I talked about this a little while ago, and the possibility that I might actually go and be interim there and turn the church plant. I don't think that's going to happen. Our church plant's just not at that place. It would set our church plant a while back, and I think my responsibility is to our church plant. So the solution is for this church to find a pastor, and I'm on a committee of local pastors that are trying to help this church find a pastor. So just be praying for us along those lines. We also have received a couple donations for the camp next week. Lord willing, I'm going to be going out to the camp, and we're doing a few more things there. On that project, these projects are little by little. You know, I'd love to get like $1 million and put this camp together all at once. And woohoo, we've got a camp. But that's not the way things work, at least generally speaking. Usually people, here, we've got $100 here, $1,000 here. In this case, we received a very generous gift of $500. Shout out to the church at West Windsor. Thank you very much for that. And that will be applied to the camp, and we'll have pictures up, hopefully, not next Monday, but the following Monday. I'll be able to talk a little bit more about on these videos, what went on there. So very excited. Also, our church is progressing. The electrical work is still being finished, but he did get fans installed in the church, which was part of the project. And so on Sunday we had a cooler service, not because the pastor was cooler, wore shades or anything like that, but because we actually had fans, so that was wonderful. And hopefully the pastoral apartment up above will be will be finished, and within this week or the next 2 weeks, and we'll be able to move on to the structural things that need to be taken care of. And our goal is for Pastor Francivaldo to be able to move into this apartment by December. So pray for God's provision. We've received a couple of good offerings. Pray, once again, West Windsor, people at West Windsor, thank you very much. Pray for that we'll be able to find the right people to do this job, and that by Christmas, Pastor Francivaldo will be able to be in his apartment, and then we will be able to focus as a church on finishing our temple, our theologically incorrect word, I know, finish our sanctuary, and get that set up. And that's the last construction thing that needs to happen before the church can graduate. And the only other thing that needs to happen for the church to graduate is for the church to become financially self-sufficient. And this is going to be a focus of mine in 2018. So that's where we're at, ministry-wise. That's the adventure we had today. Lots of interesting, exciting things coming up. Stay tuned. Stay tuned on Facebook. I know I said last week I would have a prayer letter out. Ha! That did not happen. Hopefully this week it will. I'm way overdue on a prayer letter, and if you're not on our prayer letter list and would like to be on it, shoot me an email or shoot me a message here on Facebook with your email, a private message, and I will add your email address so that you can get our prayer letter, and I'll be happy to send that to you so you can keep up with what's going on. All right, thanks a lot for listening. Until next Monday, this is Andrew Cummings here in Brazil. God bless.